Well, guys, I got these good-looking locks from Oswaldo down in Miami. He says he picked these up overseas, and he told me what they sell for. And roughly, it's half of the price of a very nearly identical Abus. And I thought to myself, gosh, what a bargain. This is fantastic. I basically get an Abus for half the price, or even less. And then I got to wondering, well, how do they do that? And how do they sell these for half the price, still make a decent profit? And more importantly, what does it mean to my security? Well, let's take a look at them and just explore that just a little bit. First of all, just the appearance of them. They look almost identical. There are some very slight dimensional differences on this knockoff, on this no-namer. The body of it, it's just very slightly smaller, which is going to save some material. When you look at the body of both of them, you can see the finish on the knockoff is a little rougher. So they spent less time on finishing it. All the way around, the angles are not quite identical. It doesn't matter, though. I mean, this flange here is a little bit bigger. That doesn't affect our security in the least. When you take a look at the bottoms, again, the machine marks in this one on the right are very apparent. On the Abus, you can see they've spent some time on fit and finish. Likewise, let me grab a pick here. The finish on this one, you can see that the retaining cap is almost perfectly flush on the Abus, whereas on the knockoff, not quite. As I said, the fit and finish. This will give me a little bit of a purchase if I want to use a chisel or something. Probably not ideal. Let me flip them around so they're the same. When you take a look at the finish on the lock, on the Abus lock itself, perfectly smooth, well finished, well fitted. And then take a look at this guy. You can see those machine marks, a little bit of pitting in there. So kind of rough looking, and you have to assume that if you've got that rough looking finish on the outside, it's probably also going to extend in the inside. Nothing I've talked about so far really represents a threat to my security. That's purely aesthetic. So let's take a look at the security part of it. You'll notice the Abus, it says hardened, and you know what? So does the knockoff. Let me get a micrometer here. The real Abus thickness on the shackle is 6.33 millimeters, and on the knockoff it is 6.29. So very slight difference, but when you're making thousands of these, a couple of grams of steel here and there can make a difference. I am going to, by the way, check to see if, I know it says hardened. I know in the Abus it really means it. I'm just curious if it also means it in the knockoff. Let's go ahead and I'm going to pick these. Let's check pick resistance. Again, I want to measure how that half price affects the security of my stuff. So let me find a tensioner and let's go ahead and pick these things real quick. All right, one of the most obvious places to save money, of course, is putting a crappy lock inside of there. Let's go and see if we can get into this bad boy. I've already chosen the bottom of the keyway tensioner. This is the medium thickness. Just going to slide that in there. I'm going to use a short hook. So what I'll try to do is just zip them open. That's a lot of times the fastest way to get into a non-security pin lock. So very light tension, and then just see if I can zip her open real quick. Oops, there's one. There's two. I'm starting to see a trend here. I'm thinking maybe I don't want to lock up anything valuable with these things if they can be raked open or zipped open quite that easily. And number 3. All right. I am not impressed so far. I can already see that saving 50% on the price is going to cost me whatever it is I locked up with these. But let's go ahead and keep looking, see what else they compromise. I'm going to go ahead and pick this guy, but I'm not going to use bottom of the keyway tension. It's a different keyway. I'm going to put him in the vise and pick him with top of the keyway tension. Let's see how long the real Abus takes. All right, we're going to use the same technique on this Abus. I'm going to use the same pick. But the only difference is because of the shape of this keyway, I'm just going to use top of the keyway. We're still going to try to rake it, and let's just do that now. Now, I've picked a lot of these Abus Model 72s, and I can tell you, it's gone into fault set. You probably saw it turn. Once you're in a fault set, you're caught up on security pins. Further raking is really not going to help you. So at that point, we got to go in and find the security pin that's caught up. And there he is. It's a spool. Got him. Okay, that was serrated. We got a little further click. There's another spool right there. There's another click. There's another spool right there. And we got an open. All right, it took a lot longer, but you guys need to keep in mind that this was a single pin picking. Most criminals haven't been picking locks for 2 weeks like I have. I've gotten the hang of it. So we got some decent pick resistance from what's basically a $10 lock compared to something selling for half the price. But let's not stop there. Let's keep looking at this thing. Both of these say hardened. I believe the Abus one is, but we're going to double check it just to see if maybe Abus is telling us a story. So let me go ahead and clamp these up in a vise one at a time, and let's double check it. All right, guys, I got this thing clamped up. What I thought we would do is I have a brand new saw blade, and I'll use a brand new one for the Abus as well. I'm going to go ahead and with the same pressure, I'm going to line it up with the edge of the lock right here and give it, 5 good licks. And then we'll do the same thing on the Abus, and then we can compare both of those cuts. So let's go ahead and see if we can make that happen. All right, 5 good cuts. All right, that's 5 on the knockoff. And let me put a new blade in that and clamp up the Abus. All right, guys, there's the Abus, a second brand new unused blade. Let me zoom in a little bit on the section we're going to be trying to cut. And let's see what we got here. Same location, same 5 strokes. Man, that's nothing. I'm going to give it a few more. I'm going to have to say that's hardened. All right, guys, let's take a look at the Abus first. And you can see with a lot more than 10 strokes. I mean, I did a job on the aluminum, but that hardened outer coat, the hardened is probably not false advertising. I would say that definitely is a pretty good job of hardening that one. This one's a little different. If you take a close look at that, that is 5 strokes. And 5 strokes cut roughly a third of the way through. So 15 or 20 strokes, you're going to get completely through that. So this is definitely false advertising. So this is how they save money, guys, is that they don't use hardened steel. But we're not through with them yet. Let's go ahead and open them up. Let's take a look at the innards and see what other shortcomings we can find on this knockoff. All right, let's take a look at some things that aren't so apparent from outside of the lock. Let's go component by component. Obviously, Abus on the left and no name on the right. When we take a look at the Bibles themselves, you notice that the Abus has a chromed finish. It is undoubtedly brass beneath it, but the chrome finish is going to give it more corrosion resistance, make it last a little bit longer. Also, the finish on the Abus is much better all the way around. So that's one advantage. On the cores themselves, again, same kind of deal. From a distance, they are almost identical, but I think on the Abus on the left, you can see it's much more intricate, much finer finish on it. It's going to turn smoother for you. It's got a larger actuator. A lot of advantages to this one on the left. Both of these look to be chromed, but the one on the left looks to be a bit higher quality chrome job to keep that corrosion back. There's no difference on the 2 retainers other than color. Surprising. The finish is a little different, but that really doesn't really matter that much. On the retaining clips, if I can grab this with a pair of tweezers. On the no name, you have a spring steel retaining clip. So if you're going to lock up a bicycle outside, eventually this one will rust through. On the Abus, stainless steel C-clip. So it will not rot with time. On the pins, I'm just going to hold the tray up. On the Abus, you have quite a good assortment of security pins. You got some serrateds, you got some spools, and all 6 pins, 6 chambers were populated. And surprisingly, all 6 were also populated in the no name. That's a favorite way for them to save money. But You'll also notice that it's got cheaper steel springs and also no security pins whatsoever. Now take a look at the screw. These are the two retaining screws that hold the locks together. The one on the right, I checked it. It is not a hardened steel screw, so soft metal, Phillips. And notice the head on this, it has a round head. On this one, we have a tapered head. It's also much thicker, and it's made from stainless steel as opposed to soft steel. Why is that important? Well, I'll show you. On the side of these locks, there's a hole, and that hole is designed to let the water out when it drains down the shackle. There's a place for the water to get out. Directly behind that hole is the head of a screw. Okay, if it is a round head like this, you can use that as a pilot hole and you can drill the head off and the guts will fall out of the lock. If you use a much higher quality stainless steel screw that's tapered and fits down below that, makes it much more difficult to drill this out to get the guts out of the ABUS. So I guess it comes down to, is the ABUS and all the benefits worth an additional $5 or $6? In my eyes, yes. So this lock is going to slow down an intruder much longer than this one. This one's going to require someone with SPPing skills to get into it. This one can be raked open pretty much by any buffoon. This one cannot be drilled out easily because of the recessed screw. This one can be drilled out very easily with the cheapest of drill bits. This one has a hardened shackle, so a criminal is going to have a lot of trouble sawing it. He's going to need a really decent set of croppers or a die grinder. This one, not so much. We're going to be able to saw through that in probably less than a minute. Is it worth the additional money? I would say, without question. But so many people, particularly in the United States, make all of their decisions based strictly on price. They look at two locks hanging on the hook and they say, $10, $5. This is the one everyone grabs because they don't know all the internal differences and all of the additional security measures that are in the $10 lock that the $5 lock manufacturer just cut those corners to put money in his own pocket and to basically take money out of yours. Anyway, fellas, those are the difference between cheap locks and no-name locks. Appreciate your time. Stay safe. Stay legal. Oswaldo. Never put a lot of thought into this until you sent these locks to me. I appreciate it.